So we go from zero, is it?
Yes. Yeah. Welcome to the public square. What is your name?
Peter.
Peter. And Peter, where are you from?
So my origins are from Poland.
Poland?
We're in Belfast now, I believe.
And do you like it here in Belfast?
It's an interesting experience, I can say. Yeah.
Okay, cool. This week I'm trying to get differing opinions about cyber intelligence firms, intel firms. What is your understanding of like a cyber intelligence firm?
Well, the main device for cyber intelligence firms nowadays is the very one which we hold in our pockets, which is called mobile phone. So I believe we're all on it. Okay,
cool. I have some questions on this topic. If a cyber intelligence firm, if their existence depends on the erosion of our individual privacy, can these cyber intelligence firms ever be considered a good force, or does like the unlawful nature in the activities make it morally corrupt from the outset?
So you have to understand first of all that most the so-called three-letter agencies and intelligence agencies, their main focus of their activities from their very origins was actually economic intelligence, that if you could get hands on anything which gave you an edge or advantage in economic terms, that was the main focus, which we probably were misled that it's most about politics and wars and national security. And I think the main core of it was always the same. It was, as I said, economic terms. Now it's just more in depth and more individual. But the general idea was the same, to just suppress our abilities to flourish as individuals, because there is always a struggle between individual sovereignty and a big capital.
And so is it, don't mean to cut you off, is it your opinion that intelligence firms are focused on the economic well-being of the country, or just they're focused on, I guess, financial benefit for themselves?
Not for themselves, for their clients, which is big capital. They're focused on misleading, distraction and economic suppression of individuals for benefits of their clients. It was never different, it was always the same. Only the tools expanded and went more in depth, and they're more ever present. Before it, they had to make more effort to reach out for this information. Now we're providing this information for them ourselves voluntarily for free. And quite often we think that we're obliged to do that, which is also another misleading fact.
Interesting perspective. I like that. I have a question. Should a cyber intelligence firm be held to a higher legal standard than, let's say, for instance, a tabloid newspaper, when it comes to using like our information to harm a person's reputation, their private reputation? As we know, intelligence firms, they operate with like less transparency and without democratic oversight.
I think we're starting from the wrong end. This point of view is misleading. Asking a big capital to hold itself accountable for itself, it's a good wish, but it's just well-wishing. I think the main key and point should be bringing back education of the basics of law and sovereignty into basic education to primary schools. That's what was withdrawn decades, if not more than 100 years ago, together with now math being removed, so you cannot even count what counts. Yeah, I think we should be rather learn on our personal, individual level and share this information. What is our sovereignty, what it means, and what are the basic steps to reclaim it in our everyday life. If we become more conscious of where is the borderland of our autonomy and what we can allow and what's our choice to allow for others, then that's the main, best and basic tool to dissipate this overstepping of different agencies.
So is it your contention that individual sovereignty, so your personal sovereignty?
It starts for education, yes.
It starts with education, okay. Interesting. If a cyber intelligence firm, like if they orchestrate a campaign of disinformation to harm somebody's reputation, this is an important question that I have. Should they be held criminally liable, or should criminal liability fall onto them? Should it fall onto the leadership, or should it fall onto the firm, or both?
So again, it comes back to law and sovereignty, because the real court in original law is us, is the society, is our social conscience.
Okay.
Yeah, everything is encoded in the words. Even the word criminal or criminality, it's the mindset. It's about intent. Crime is in all. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have wrong intent, you know it, and other people under skin, they know it as well. You just have to display it and show it, and people have a full right to judge you. There is no separate individual as judge. Judges were never judges before. They were just clerics advising on the law. And what is still left in the US American law system, it's the bench, which represents social consciousness, which gives a final verdict, and that verdict can override existing law. We are the law. That was forgotten. So again, we're coming back to the same point which I said before. If we are aware of what we represent and what we can express and what's our power, all these other issues naturally either immediately or in time disappear.
Interesting perspective. One thing that I've heard a lot during these conversations is that often, like, the interviewees pivot to American or the United States, our responsibility, and that might be something I'll do next time. That's something I'm going to be considering, is, you know, whether U.S. has a larger role in the scheme of things. But here in Northern Ireland, specifically here in Belfast, do you think that this nation should adopt like a legal standard where the cumulative effect of repeated online harassment by, for example, a cyber hacker or somebody working in intelligence could form the basis of a serious criminal offense?
Well, first of all, there is still ongoing argument what the nation in this locality is and what it means. I think it's the main core here is very divisive, and that should be fixed first. But I would say, coming back to the second part of your question, which was on...
So the second part was, should cyber intel agencies or a cyber hacker, somebody that's on their computer and they're using their computer to harm other people, should there be stiffer penalties for persons that are doing that? Say, for instance, you are minding your own business, you're not doing anything illegal, and you have a person on the other end of your laptop, a cyber hacker that is hacking into your devices or trying to cause you harm. Should there be stiffer penalties for that kind of criminal behavior?
But how can you expect that if the main parties doing that is the governments themselves? Like, where is the party holding any accountability?
So should there... I like that point. And that was interesting that you said that, because governments do engage in this. So should...
I'll give you an example. The fake claim of monitoring equality and employment. There is nothing of non-discriminatory nature in the questions in which you're not even allowed to say, I prefer not to answer this question. There are no such options here, for instance, on the labor market. So all the illegal extraction of information from you and misleading comes from the very source which you're expecting to keep other parties accountable. I think it's a difficult field altogether.
That's an interesting perspective, like on the labor market here. I can sympathize with that. Last but not least, there is, for example, there's recruiting firms such as Enzo that is domiciled here in Belfast. They often place IT specialists with cybersecurity firms like NISOs, which is a cybersecurity firm, here in Belfast, and sometimes at universities, without any contractual safeguards for private persons. My question is, would the existence of an anti-cybercrime clause in a recruiting contract be considered a basic for professional standards? So, for example, you have these intelligence agencies, and they're often operating without any oversight, and their contracts don't have a clause in there not to engage in this kind of criminality. Should there be a clause to hold them responsible? I do know that governments are engaged in this behavior as well, but with these firms, should there be a clause of accountability?
So what you're talking about now, you're trying to rub off with the rubber just a small section of reality and the law. The case is that currently there is a whole cloud of information circulating behind your back, being shared about you, and you're being tracked and focused on any kind of step, and there are constant checkpoints. If you would want to fix what you're trying to address, the whole law would have to be written again, and all the current layers which try to cover existing criminality should be wiped off. If airplane companies, their main activities for decades was, and many others now, collecting your data and sharing it so everyone knows where you go, where you travel, who you meet, what you buy, that's not the recent exposition or inventory or commercial activity. It's just, again, expanded more in depth now. All this information is already addressing and monitoring students even before employment, and they're not even aware quite often for them the decisions being made with their attempts of getting any work seem illogical, but quite often they're of the fact of all this monitoring already taking place before they even leave the university. So there is definitely a lot of illegal activity, but it's way more complex and multi-layered, and you probably would have to start from the very beginning where it started.
You are correct. There is this intrusive surveillance that is happening before persons enter university. There is legislation here in the United Kingdom, such as the Computer Misuse Act of 1990, the Investigatory Powers Act of 2016.
There is also a law on a desk in this same so-called country nation, which considers making even a thinking a crime. So you should talk about both sides of this legal environment.
Yeah, I think I will look into that. And what is your name again?
Peter.
Peter, thank you so much, Peter. Thank you so much for your contributions. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.